The next thing we're going to do is foundation. Now, you don't have to use foundation. You could just get away with using concealer. But like I said, I'm going over just kind of every step in the makeup routine that I personally like to do. So when picking a foundation, it's really important that you, again, know your skin type, because there are matte foundations, there are dewy foundations, and if you use a matte foundation and your skin is really dry, it's gonna dry you out 10 times faster than you usually would. So when you have dry skin, like with primer, go with a more dewy foundation. If you have oily skin, go with a more matte foundation. And all matte means is that it will be a little more drying on the face, so that way your oils won't peek throughout the day. And a hydrating foundation will just give your skin more of a glow that your dry skin wouldn't let you have before. Choosing a color for your foundation is super, super personal. So when picking a foundation, you have to take into consideration your skin tone. My skin tone is very warm, very olive, and very golden. So when I look for foundation, I look for those things when I look for a shade. Now, picking a shade at the drugstore is very tricky because you can't test a lot of things at the drugstore. At Ulta, they will help you, and usually they will have testers of the drugstore products, because in Ulta they do have a drugstore section. So definitely don't be afraid to go into Ulta when buying makeup. So just ask one of the employees to help you pick out a foundation shade, and they will typically match to your neck, because I don't know if you guys can tell, but my face is a little bit red and has some scarring and has some discoloration in places. So you definitely want to match your foundation shade to your neck and the rest of your body. Otherwise, your face will be a completely different color than your body, and it will just look funny. See, Justin has pink undertones, and I have yellow and olive. Thank you. That was very good. Like this video. Some foundations that I would recommend from the drugstore are the Maybelline Matte and Poreless Foundation, which would be best for oily skin, like I said before, and that's around $5 to $7 depending on where you buy it. Another one I would recommend is the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte Liquid Foundation, which is around $12 depending on where you buy it. And that again is good for more oily skin because it's matte. And then the last one is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation, which is $5, which is the best deal. The Photo Focus Foundation is good for dry and oily skin, so I would highly recommend that one for your first foundation. The two techniques that I use for doing my foundation are a really dense kabuki brush or a beauty sponge. Now, I got this from morphebrushes.com, and this is the Morphe M439, and this was around $5, I believe. I actually prefer brushes, I think, now, because brushes don't soak up a lot of the product like a sponge will. When using a sponge, you want to make sure that it's wet, and when you do that, you just run it under some water under the sink, and then you let it soak up, and then you squeeze out the water. When you squeeze your beauty blender, when you're about to use it, you don't want any more water coming out, you just want it to be damp. Usually foundations will come in a pump like this, and you can pump them out, or they will come in a little squeezy tube like this, or they will come in a kind of like a bottle, and then you pour it, which I don't like those. I would definitely recommend getting a pump foundation for your first foundation, or a squeezy tube foundation, just because it's easier to control. So I will put just a little bit on the back of my hand, just a little bit, especially if you're just starting. So I'm gonna do one side of my face with a brush and the other side with a beauty blender. And I pick it up with the brush, and I will start to dab it on my skin. A lot of people will drag their makeup across their face. I don't like doing that, because when you drag your brush across your face, it will, one, leave streak marks from the brush if you're using a bad brush. Usually if you're using a good brush, that's fine. But the other reason that I don't drag my brush across my face is because it tugs at your skin. And when you do that, you are prematurely giving yourself wrinkles. And I know you don't see it right away, obviously, because wrinkles don't happen really overnight. But if you do your makeup every day and you're constantly tugging at your skin, you're gonna get premature wrinkles. And nobody wants premature wrinkles. And I will just pat, pat, pat. And that's really going to also push the product into my skin. If this is enough coverage for you, that's fine. Just go with that one pump. If not, add a little bit more in the back of your hand, because like I said with the eyebrow stuff, you can always add more. It's really hard to take it away. You wanna make sure you also take the foundation a little bit down your neck, because you want everything to blend really well together. Some people think I'm crazy because I do my eyebrows first, because they're like, how do you put foundation around your eyebrows? And because I carve them out with concealer, there's already product there, so I really don't feel like I need to go over that. And so I will just lightly be kind of very careful around my brows and just kind of lightly tap some product there. And when I do around my mouth, I will close my mouth. That way I don't get foundation lips. If that's enough coverage for you, that's great. If not, add more. It's really your preference. But usually when you're just starting out with makeup, you don't want to put a lot because it's super overwhelming. So now I'm just going to do the same thing. You could also do it this way. You could take your finger and kind of dot the product around your face. Like that. Take the Beauty Blender and just pounce the product into your face. And it's the same technique as with a brush, but like I said, the sponge will soak up more of the product than the brush will. Again, bring it a little bit down your neck, and even do it a little bit on your ears, because then if your ears are like super red like mine, then you'll have like a flawless face and, you know, flawless skin on your neck and arms and stuff, and then your ears are just bright red. So make sure to bring just a little bit on your ears. If that doesn't bother you, then don't do it, you know, like it's whatever, it's just my preference. And you want to bring it down your neck because you don't want a sharp line here. Even though your foundation should match the color of your neck, you still want to bring it down a little bit, just a little bit. You don't have to bring it like all the way down here, but you just want to blend it a little down. And don't put any like more product on your neck. Just take what you have left and bring it down a little bit. You don't have to waste your foundation and add more to your neck when your face is what really needs foundation, not really your neck. You just take the excess product and bring it down like that. So the next thing we're going to do is concealer, and concealer is also very personal to each person. So I think I'm pretty fair. I'm a little more tan, but overall I am pretty fair. And so concealer is just a extra oomph, if you will. So if you have breakouts or acne scarring or discoloration, like I have a little bit of redness under here, and I definitely have dark circles under my eyes and bags, and that is what concealer will help with. So you can either go the same shade as your foundation when picking a concealer, or you can be like me and go a shade or two lighter. The reason I go a shade or two lighter is because the lighter color, especially under here, will bring your face up and brighten everything and make you look more awake. I don't have a concealer right now that's actually my foundation shade, but I do have this one that I use every day. This is from Makeup Revolution, and I think this was $7. And you can get that at Ulta, I believe, but it's in the drugstore section because this is a drugstore brand. And then another one I recommend is the Maybelline Fit Me, and it comes in a little tube like this. And then another one I recommend you can get at Ulta or online is the ColourPop No Filter Concealer. And then I also like the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind Concealer. This is so, so good. If you're just starting out, I would probably go with the concealer that matches your foundation, unless you just have really horrible dark under eyes or really bad discoloration. Then I would go with maybe a shade lighter. And I put it right under my eyes here. Just bring that down a little bit. And I just cover the dark circles under my eyes and the discoloration under there. Now, you can use this much concealer or you can use this much concealer. It really doesn't matter, it's your preference. Like I said, if you're a beginner, you probably don't wanna start with using this much concealer. I would just go ahead and use a couple dots or even just something like that. And then if you have acne scarring or a breakout that you wanna cover up, so I have a little tiny breakout right there, I'm just going to dot a little bit of concealer right on top of that breakout. And then I have some on my cheeks here, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that extra coverage that the foundation really didn't cover. And then I have a couple on this side that I'm just going to dot. And then I have like one right between my eyebrows. I'm going to show you what I do to blend it out. So I will use either the same brush I use as my foundation or the same beauty blender. Buff that in with the brush. Now I will leave the concealer under my eyes sitting just a tad longer than I let the concealer on my face sit. And that's because I want there to be extra coverage under my eyes because of my dark circles and my redness under there. So I will just first blend out the concealer that I put on my face. Then after about 30 or so seconds, I will blend out the concealer under my eyes. Now, you want to be super careful when you're blending out concealer under your eyes because you really don't want to tug in this area, because your under eyes are the most sensitive part of your face and it's really susceptible to wrinkles under there. Using a lighter shade will really brighten everything. If you noticed, I look more awake, I look more vibrant, I think. Same thing with the beauty blender. You just take it and press that product in. And that's concealer. Powder will also be the same shade as your foundation usually. And I recommend that if you're a first time makeup user, that you use a pressed powder. Now, all that means is that it's in a pan and it won't come out. If you're more advanced, there is loose powder, which is like this. And it's a lot more messy, and I would not recommend this for beginners. And I have two different powder shades. I have one that matches my foundation, and then I have one that I like to put under my eyes specifically. And that's because I used a lighter shade of concealer under my eyes than my foundation. So the way I like to apply my powder is I will take a very large fluffy brush. This one is from Real Techniques. I think this is just, oh yeah, it's just the large powder brush. And you can get this at, I think, Walgreens, Ulta, Target, Real Techniques. They sell Real Techniques everywhere. Dab my brush in the powder. You don't have to like drag it around. You're gonna pick up product. And then just pounce it again on your face. Now, if you have dry skin, use very little powder because you don't want to dry out your skin more. Even though you use a dewy foundation, you can dry out your skin if you put on too much dry powder. So I'll just take a little bit and just dab it everywhere. And the reason we do foundation and concealer first and then powder is because foundation and concealer are liquid. They are wet products. So after you're done using your wet products, you want to set them all in place with a powder product. That way, when you apply your powder bronzer and blush and highlight later, it's not slipping and sliding on those liquid products. And then you can also kind of dab under your eyes. But me personally, I like to use a smaller, more defined brush for under my eyes. So I'm going to switch my powder. You don't have to. If you use a lighter concealer, then switch powders. If you don't, if you use the same color as your foundation, just set it with the same powder that you use. I like to use this more dense packer brush because it fits under my eyes better and it's not so sporadic. As you can tell, this brush is a lot more not compacted, whereas this one will pick up more product and place more product. This one will kind of disperse more product in different areas. This will really target one area, which is what I want for under my eyes. The first thing that you have to do for under your eyes when you're setting them is take that brush or beauty sponge that you used and make sure that the creasing from the concealer is not there. Sometimes you will have natural creases in your eyes and you just can't help it. That's what I have to deal with. So I will make sure that the creases are blended out under both eyes. And then I will go straight into my brush, straight into my powder. And I will press that powder underneath my eye. And the powder that I use for my face is the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless Normal to Oily powder. I also am using the Rimmel Stay Matte, which I think both of these are around like $7 to $10. If you're a beginner, then I think just the big fluffy brush will do just fine. And you don't want to use too much powder because then your foundation and your whole base could come off really cakey looking. And when I say cakey, I mean it looks super clumpy and like it's almost falling off. When you're wearing makeup, you kind of want it to be like a second skin. And so you want it to look somewhat natural. And so when you're doing your makeup, keep that in mind, that if you're putting on powder or you're putting on product and you notice that it looks kind of unnatural, then you probably put on a little too much. The next step that I like to do is bronzer. And you could absolutely skip this step as well, but I wouldn't. I love bronzer, and bronzer is totally a must for me. But if you just want to do blush, then that's fine. But we're going to do bronzer first. Bronzer is, okay, so if you notice right now, my face looks super flat and one color. It looks one-dimensional. So what bronzer will do is give your face a contour and kind of make it more dimensional to where you can see your cheekbones, to where you can kind of give structure and shape to your face. When picking a bronzer, you want to pick a color that again complements your skin tone, and that's something that you just need to go in and get help with from a consultant, from a friend. Usually they're really good about matching you. So if you don't know, just ask. There are people more than happy to help you. Bronzer will also give life back to the face because I am one color right now and I kind of look dead. So adding bronzer will definitely add life back to your face. So one that I really recommend is the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. This is such a good bronzer. And then another one that I like to use is from ColourPop, and it is this one in the shade Private Party. And I like to use that one as well. I think the ColourPop bronzers are around $5 to $6, and the butter bronzer was around $7. So the way that I like to apply my bronzer is with this brush right here. This is a brush from ColourPop. I'm not exactly sure what this is called because I ordered it in a brush bundle, and it doesn't say it on the brushes. The new collection that they just released, they have the names for the brushes, but it's just a brush that is smaller here and kind of fluffs out at the end here, and it's super soft. And then I also like to use this one. This brush is from Mata Pro, and it is the BMX 130 pointed brush. And the reason that I like this brush is because it's really fluffy, but it has a point. You can get right in to your face right there where you want your cheekbones to kind of be lifted and where you want that bronzer and contour to kind of go. You can really use any brush to bronze that will kind of suit your face. Like this is a blush brush, but this would work also to bronze. So it's really your preference. If you want just a generic, like what brush do I get? I think I would go for an angled brush or a slightly pointed brush like this one. Probably an angled brush, just because it'll fit right into that socket right here, because I like to do this. And as you can see, that gives that really sharp line of where you want that bronzer to go. I'm going to go ahead and use my butter bronzer, and I'm going to use this brush here just because it's what I'm used to. And then I'm going to make that fishy face again. And what I'm doing is I don't go below that line that I made when I made my fish face. Right there, I don't want to bring my bronzer below that. And the reason being is because the contour that the bronzer gives that brings everything up. So if you put bronzer down here, it'll kind of look muddy and like your face is dirty. Dip in a little bit more. And I really like the butter bronzer because you can go kind of heavy-handed. And when I say heavy-handed, I mean you can kind of get a lot of product on the brush, but it blends out super well. So what I like to do is I like to do circles, and I like to start from the bottom and do circles up toward my hairline. And just kind of getting in that socket, but also bringing it up just a little bit, but not higher than my cheekbone. I find the little circle swirling motions just a little bit easier because you can really blend that way. And you also don't want to bring your bronzer too far down on your mouth. So as you can see, my bronzer kind of stops right here because I don't want my mouth to look muddy or dirty either. And so some bronzers can look muddy or gray on some people. So that's why you want to go in and get help when picking a bronzer and a foundation and a concealer. And it's no shame if you ask for help. Please ask for help because you don't want to do your makeup and have a gray or muddy bronzer. So what I also like to do is I'm going to dip back into that bronzer and I'm going to bronze the forehead a little bit. So what I like to do is I like to start at the temples of my forehead, which is right here. And I like to kind of swirl that back into my hairline a little bit and do it on the other side. And like I said, this is just bringing life back into the face. So it's just adding a little bit of a natural tan, if you will, and a little bit of shadow. That way your forehead doesn't look so flat and one-dimensional. Also like to take just a little bit, and I also like to put it right under my jaw. Not a lot here. Sometimes I won't even dip in again, and I will just put the remaining product that I have on my brush and I'll just bring it down my neck and on my jaw a little bit. That way there's a shadow here too, so your jawline looks really snatched and really sharp. And I just kind of go over everything. If I want to add more, I'll add more. And that is bronzer.